This is the Millennials in Multifamily podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. We interview industry experts to unlock key information that will help young professionals break into the multifamily world in order to create long-term and short-term wealth. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to iTunes and leave a rating and written review so we can reach more listeners.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Millennials in Multifamily podcast. I'm your host, John Stober, with my co-host, Fritz Ritter, and today our guest is Ellis Hammond. Ellis began his investing journey back when he was still a full-time college pastor. With a goal to create passive income, him and his wife invested in a duplex in San Diego in 2018, and then joint ventured on a 144-unit during the same year. Now he is the founder of Kingdom Capitalist, the #1 mastermind for Christian real estate investors, while also continuing to source his own deals and build his database of investors.
Ellis Hammond. Ellis, could you please give us and our listeners just a little bit about your background, your story, and tell us, how did you get into real estate investing?
What's up, guys? Glad to be here, man. This is fun to be around a like-minded crowd, even close in age too. So pumped to join. I'm a millennial, so I definitely qualify. You guys have had some folks in here that aren't millennials, by the way.
It's a mix, man. You got to get the old people to help the millennials along the way.
Yeah. All right. Well,
you got to bring the millennials on too.
Man. I'm definitely a millennial for sure. But I have not always been a real estate investor. I was actually a former missionary and Christian pastor for about 6 years. Bought our first deal, which was a duplex in San Diego, California, while we were still pastoring. And we also did our first syndication, a 144-unit deal, while we were still full-time missionary. And that was really the launching pad for us, man. That kind of, I guess, catapulted us into this world of real estate and the world of multifamily. And so, yeah, now I manage a network of investors that, we're looking to place capital in large multifamily apartment complexes across the United States that really do produce strong yield and distinctively strong spiritual impact. And we can talk about that as much or as little as you want to today as well.
Yeah, so could you tell us a little bit more about those first two deals, the 2-unit, and then how you went from 2 units to just 144-unit syndication?
Yeah, man. I'll try and go step by step, but for anyone who's listening, I would say that the two biggest principles for me early on was tell everyone what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, hey, anyone I could come in contact, I want to buy real estate. I want to buy real estate. I want to buy real estate. I mean, I had no real estate background. I had no idea of really what it meant to go and build wealth. I was a missionary, man. The reason we started investing in real estate is because we were just looking for better ways to create wealth. And I went to a 2-hour seminar, right? It was how I even knew that one could buy real estate with not very much money. And so anyways, we went on this just tear, man, to figure out, well, how do we go buy real estate? And so the only thing I knew to do was just talk to people. I'm like, who can show me something? Tell me something. And so we bought that duplex by listening to podcasts, reading books, and I found a mentor. And that would be the second principle is just find people who are where you want to be and replicate what they're doing. I mean, real estate is not an innovative industry. Like, it really is learning from the success of others and replicating that and maybe finding your own flair and twist to that. And so we found a mentor who helped us find a deal, kind of, even in a lot of ways just showed me why this was valuable. And so we bought a duplex here in San Diego. We house hacked. So we lived in one unit, we flipped the other. And so, cool, man. It's a cool story. That was about 3 years ago. That's coming full circle. We're about to put that on the market, and we've done very well. It would take me about 20 years as a missionary to probably make as much money that we'll make in this duplex. So that's pretty cool. And but the problem with that duplex, it cost over $500,000 to buy that duplex back in 2017, I guess, 2016. It just took all of our time. And, I was still working as a missionary then, and I had these big goals, man, of like what we wanted to achieve wealth-wise and really get to a place not just for our family, but to support our nonprofit and to support others. And we just had these God-sized goals and realized that buying a duplex at a time was not gonna cut it, man. It just wasn't scalable. But again, no idea what to do. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, well, let me just go buy 144 units. Like, I just never even thought you could do something like that until I learned about this idea of syndication, where, what syndication allowed me to do was leverage my superpower of networking, building relationships, selling a vision. And I could partner with other experts who had the experience in real estate. And then we could go find investors we could pull capital together and go buy larger stuff that none of us would be able to buy on our own. And so what I was really able to leverage to get into that large apartment complex was my network and my skill of, it wasn't even marketing then, man. It was just like evangelizing, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, just telling everybody I knew why I think they should invest in real estate. So that's how we got up to that so fast.
So there's something I'm really curious about. Like, when I think of a missionary, I don't think of someone who's like super, I guess, capitalistic. It's very like selfless, trying to help other people, not thinking about wealth. And with your power being like networking, I guess, were there any like challenges or hurdles you had to overcome within your network to kind of pursue this capitalistic goal of wealth creation?
That's a great question. Yeah, 100%. So I talk about, it's actually a chapter in my book. I talk about the Facebook post that changed it all. And because literally, man, like, I made this Facebook post and I was so excited, like we just bought over $10 million of real estate in like 9 months. It was just ridiculous. And I was so excited I could tell others, and like even see if people wanted to be part of what we were doing on next projects. And I remember getting ready to hit send or submit or whatever you do on Facebook. And it was just like waiting for the flood of like great comments. People like, oh, I can't wait to work with you. And like what I got instead was like, why are you buying real estate? Like, where did you get the money to buy $10 million of real estate? Are you rich? Like, why are we supporting you in your nonprofit? And what I was really upset, to be honest with you, man, for a couple of days. But what I realized, or what I guess maybe failed to realize when I made that post, is that I had been on a journey in my own faith to realize that money really isn't evil, that money is actually a tool, a vehicle that we can really steward to create more impact, not less. And that I expected everybody in my circle and everyone in my network to catch up in a Facebook post from what took me probably 15 months to really get to where I was, from my mindset, of even how we thought about capital and influence and money, to where we are today, or where we were even then when we bought that 144 units. I just expected everyone else to just get it, and they didn't. And that was when it was a huge turning point for me. That's where I say my mission completely changed. And I'm writing this book, The Mission of Multifamily. And part of that mission is I want to help and educate people on this idea of capital equals influence, and that money does not have to have mastery over us, that we actually can be the master over money. But part of becoming master over money is that we need financial education. We need to understand how money works, how to use money, how to multiply money, how to protect that money, and realize ultimately that money is not a limited resource if we know how to go and create it.
That is awesome. I
Yeah.
like that. So I wanted to kind of ask, is it kind of ties into what you were talking about the spiritual impact. What does that mean to you and your investors?
Yeah, so it's why I do this. Why I love multifamily, man. This is what gives me juice. I'm so glad you asked this question. Listen, when you invest, so here's the thing about multifamily. You're buying a business, right? So most people, when you buy large multifamily, 100 plus units, yes, you're investing in real estate, but you're ultimately buying a revenue stream, and you're operating a business. So that's the business side of it. But there's also a very personal, spiritual side to it, that you're investing or owning. You are now the steward of for me, the 144 unit complex, for example, of 144 people's homes and lives, right? And so, like, so as an investor, you have the opportunity to not just, create equity and yield on your investment, but now you're part of an investment vehicle that has the opportunity to seriously impact people's lives. And so we're working with an organization called Apartment Life, or we're not yet, but we're starting to build some things to work with this organization called Apartment Life. It's just one of the ways that we see spiritual impact able to happen in our apartment communities, that they actually this organization has been a long time. They work with apartment owners, and essentially apartment owners will donate or allow a church or missionary family to live in this apartment complex. And then they give a budget, they provide a budget to the community. That family, or, missionary or that church leader who it is, that's just, let's say it's just a Christian person, lives life alongside of the other residents in this community. And so they put on events, they care for the other residents. And so it's a great business model because it helps turnover. Right? From an investment standpoint, if we can turn over from our residents, then we can lower our expenses, which increases our NOI, which adds to our bottom line. But on the other level, like, you have someone in there who's literally pastoring the community. And it's just some incredible stories, man, of what's happening. So that's, from a former pastor myself, to leave full-time vocational ministry, understanding, the power of apartment community and how we could actually use that to not just make money, but really have a spiritual impact. That was also a huge turning point for me, and realizing that you don't have to be behind a pulpit, or you don't have to work in the nonprofit world to have a true impact, right? That you can actually be a capitalist. You can actually be an entrepreneur. You can actually be an investor and have significant spiritual or social impact in the world, and make good money while you do it.
I think one thing that all three of us would probably agree upon is, like, money just amplifies who you are. Like, if you're a good person, money can help you become a better person. Like, if you're a bad person, money, can make you potentially a worse person.
Yeah.
How, within your community and of your potential investors, though, how did you get them to start seeing it the way that maybe we see it? Because it took you 15 months. Was there anything you did to, like, kind of speed up that process for them?
I would say probably the way I see that now is, I think I just continue to find my people. I don't think a lot of folks aren't still with me. Like, they just, I think I continue to find my tribe more and more. I continue to find like-minded people. So, maybe some of those folks have caught up. But I would say the more I speak about this, the more that I see that there are people actually out there who think and want to live like this and invest like this. And so it's actually probably more in the sense of, like, I'm continuing to move forward, and as I do that, I continue to meet, and I'm coming face to face with more and more people who are on the same page as me with this. And so, here's the thing though, man. Also, I have a podcast show that releases 3 times a week now. We have our mastermind community. I'm writing a book. I put out a bunch of content on LinkedIn. So it's like, I'm trying to bring everybody with me that wants to come, but at the same time, we're really growing a brand and a business in a community around this. So I would say I'm mostly probably meeting new people, not, but people can follow along as well, is my point there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of answered my next question for me, but I guess I could ask this. So what strategies are you finding that gets most of the investors on the phone with you? Like, what's that initial funnel setup look like? You say you got the podcast, the mastermind, you're putting out a lot of free content. How are you kind of getting them in to hop on the phone with you?
Dude, such a great question, man. Like, for you guys, for anybody who's really trying to kind of build out their investor base, or goes for any business, man. If you want to increase sales, I'm so good. If you're not doing this, it will double your income next year. 1,000. Have to focus on building your email list, communicating effectively with that list, not just selling, not just pitching, not just dropping links, but being top of mind, providing value via email. It is so massive. Like I see some people creating content and showing up and going on podcast shows, and they have no way to exchange value for email. So let's just be honest, guys. I'm here because I want to add value to your audience. And I also am going to offer them a free copy of my book when they give me the opportunity, right? Why? So that they can be part of my community. Because if I don't give them an opportunity to do that, great, I provided cool value, but that doesn't help me, or it really doesn't them either, because they have no way to find out how to work with me. So like building your email list is so crucial from the very beginning. So I don't know how you guys do this on this podcast show. Like if you have a call to action every show, but hey, thanks for joining the Millennial Investing Podcast. Hey, if you want to get your, 10 ways to start investing in real estate, go download this PDF. Like that should be every podcast. Like that's my biggest regret when I started my podcast was I just didn't have a great lead capture. So one of the moving to times a week is because I can do 3 call to actions I can do 3 call to actions instead of 1 call to action every week, so that I'm constantly saying, hey, I'm providing great content, great value, but then I'm saying, hey, if you want this, go download it, or go to this landing page and grab this. That way I'm continuing to build out that community.
A great advice. I mean, that is like a diamond right there. What I would like to know, and maybe that I think this could help some, newer listeners is, you have a podcast, you have a pretty big platform. For someone who's just starting out though, and they don't have all these things, like what can they do to provide value to a list that they're potentially building?
Well, you just got to get started. I mean, I haven't been doing this that long. Like you need a platform. What you guys are doing. I mean, you're taking the position of learning, right? It's not like you said, it's not like you come, like the value you provide for the guests that you've had on your show is you have a platform to be able to spotlight their stories. So that's what you're doing for me. That's the power of a platform. Honestly, I don't know if you have 10 listeners or if you have 1,000 listeners. Most people don't even check, so it's like part of it is getting started, because once you have a platform, your authority and credibility with other folks goes way up. And so I would say start a platform, podcast, a YouTube channel, probably a podcast, because it's much easier to grow a following and get people on. Like get started in that way. Another great tip, that you could, again, if you have an email list or you're trying to grow an email list, sit down and write 100 topics out. Just like, don't write the emails yet. Just write 100 topics. What do you think your ideal avatar, your ideal client is interested in? And write 100 topics that you think are going to be good, or just start with 50. And then go write a 250-word email for each of those 50 articles. And now you have 50 emails to send out once a week. Like that's pretty significant. And then you could say, go on LinkedIn, you're creating content, you're interacting, and say, hey, if you want to join my email list, I put out an email every single week educating people on why they should invest in real estate. You could sign up. You know what I mean? Like that's the very easy way to do that. So you don't have to complicate this. If you send out 1 email a week, you're doing more than most. Honestly, you're doing more than most people in this industry. Most people that have hundreds of $1 million of real estate, like the reason they don't have $1 billion in real estate is because they don't ever send an email. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like really, like that's a huge issue I see. So anyways, I'm going on a tangent, but I hope that's helpful.
No, it's like the money is in the list.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like you're building an asset.
Yeah.
So once you have them in that funnel, though, I mean, you've captured them, you provided them free value. What are you generally doing to escalate them? Like, is it straight to them becoming an investor, or are you continuing to like provide them free value?
Yeah. I'm still working on that, to be really honest with you, man. I mean, the goal for me is like, they need to, I like for them to join or be a part, like eventually invest in one of our projects. I mean, or, that's kind of that's when I know like we've gotten married, you know what I mean? Like before we're just kind of dating, and like to really be married in the sense of like, hey, we're committing capital and we're, there's a real trust being built here, but that takes time. So, for me, I mean, I do that a lot of ways. The podcast helps with that. My emails help with that. My LinkedIn content helps with that. This book's going to help with that. And so, we'll do webinars that get people to click on that. And so typically, man, they'll be in my pipeline, or maybe they've come to a webinar before I say, hey, I'm launching this fund, or hey, I have an investor club. Do you want to be a part of it? Here's how you do that. You can schedule a call. So typically there'll be some interaction. There'll be some trust building. There'll be some, I've given them some information before I say, hey, come and invest with me. So it's a lot. It's kind of a longer pipeline than that. For the book, for example, I give you a great scenario of this. You can download the book. And then once you download the book, you immediately go to a page that says, hey, we have a great investor community. Do you want to be a part of it? And you can say yes or no. If you say yes, then you'll be automatically joined our investor club, schedule a call with me. You can also say no. So, and then you get tagged. So I know either yes, you scheduled a call, or no, you didn't. So like you'll go on two different roads. If you say no, you didn't, that doesn't mean no, I'm never going to ask you again to invest with me. It just means I need to probably do some more things to get you back over here.
Right.
But if you said yes, well, then I've fast tracked you, right? You're already in my investor club. We're going to talk. That means I know you're ready to go. So I don't need to send you the 30 emails it's going to take to warm you up, because you're ready to rock. We're ready to go. Like, you know what I'm saying? So you just got to kind of think about customer journey in that regard.
And one thing, Fritz, I don't mean to cut you up, but I just noticed, Ellis, you're omnipresent. Like, you have multiple platforms with your podcasts, LinkedIn, and your books. You're hitting your followers from everywhere. It's kind of like what Grant Cardone talks about. If you've ever read the 10X rule, everyone has to know who you are. So that way, when you go to a conversation, you don't have to sell yourself. You're already sold.
That's the goal. What you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ellis. So I wanted to know, for that person who does say no, what are some good investor materials that maybe our listeners could create for themselves that could maybe build the confidence in a new investor to join your investor club?
Lists, top 10 cities, top 10 this, literally, like, another great thing is, interview other experts and like interview tax professionals, interview, other service providers, interview other investors who know more about real estate. And do a webinar and invite them to come join. Hey, we're going to go talk to this guy, and how, like me, for example, like Ellis is going to show you how he bought his first duplex, and then how he scaled to that 144 units. Like, things that you think people will be interested in, that they can register, they can learn, and that you're building credibility, alongside of that. So that's why a podcast is so great, because again, you guys are interviewing me, and not that, I'm not this multifamily rock star, but again, there's going to be if they've seen me on other things, now you and I are associated together, like your credibility kind of gets elevated to whoever you're interviewing. And so for whoever is maybe still thinking about investing with you, that starts to, the pieces start to come together there. So there's the credibility piece you're earning, but then there's also just good content. Like, you could send an email out to that person and say, hey, we just interviewed this former missionary and pastor who now owns, several $million in real estate, and, is launching his first fund. That's like, oh, that's a cool story. Let me hear about that. So I think the interview model of like taking the stance of just learning is like gold, man. And it just doesn't, for me, it's hard for me to just sit down and write, but it's pretty easy for me to like turn on my screen, get somebody to come interview. I think that's the easiest, most efficient and fastest way to really grow your brand, your network.
I'd love it if you could elaborate more on that, because I do think a lot of, especially newer or younger people, would think, like, how do they come off so that way they don't sound like some know-it-all, and then someone calls them out, and then they find out that they're just like fake and they're a phony. And like, I think interviewing is like,
ask questions.
Yeah.
That's the best way, man. Literally, I've had my podcast for 10 months. I just released my first training episode where I did any of the teaching. So up until then, it was just like I brought in great guests and I interviewed them. And I just take the posture of like, I'm here to learn, man. I just want to know how to grow businesses that honor God. Teach me. And like, it's that content people love, because if you know your audience so well, which you should if you're really trying to serve them, then you know the questions they have and you can ask those things. So like, and don't be scared to look dumb. Like that's like, I'm always like, well, this is going to make me look dumb, but I know like, I don't know the answer. So like, and so I frame my podcast that way. Hey, I'm on this journey from missionary to multifamily real estate investor and entrepreneur. If you want to be a part of that, come on. And I just think, man, it's been so authentic and so real for people because they find themselves in that journey as well. And so, and here's the thing, man, what's crazy is like, I just won a multifamily award. I don't even know how I did that, to be honest with you, just because I'm like showing up so much. And I mean, it's like literally I just beat out guys that are way more further in their career than me. I have no idea like how I won. I guess because I show up more places, and I didn't even nominate myself. I might have voted for myself, but I didn't nominate myself. You know what I mean? I don't like losing, so that's part of it. So I got nominated. If I'm in the race, I'm gonna win it. I mean, that's all there is to it. So, anyways.
No, that's awesome. I was going to ask you, besides my next question, if you voted for yourself, but
No, 100%. I voted, and then I had all my friends vote. Again, if I, now it's a competition, so it's like, all right, well, we got to win this.
No, I love that. So my next question is, for our listeners, what are some tips you could give them on how to build out their avatar, their ideal investor? What are the steps you use to kind of break down, I guess, that mold of what your ideal investor would be, when you're marketing to them?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think, so I always have 3 questions when I think about, it's who are you? Who's God made you? What are you passionate about? What are your gifts? Who do you serve? And then what do you do for them? And so that question, who do you serve, is massive. Like, it's way more important than what do you do for them, And so I think even starting there, like, who do you really want to serve might change everything for you. Because if you're not passionate about serving people who want to invest in real estate, you might not be a real estate investor. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to raise money or whatever. So I think who you want to serve is really key. I think, man, a lot of it for me was just personal. It was what I'm passionate about. Again, like my story as a former pastor and missionary, like I want to serve, where I am now, man, I'm really passionate about entrepreneurs, especially those who are spiritually minded and really trying to build businesses that have a bigger purpose behind them, because I think entrepreneurs can change the world. And so I'm really passionate about that, just because I see the need for training and education, especially for, faith-driven entrepreneurs. And so for me, man, I think it's personal. It also fits. It's also in line with the business that we're building. And I see the potential in it. And again, like these are folks that also are able to do business with me. So I think that's pretty important. You gotta, again, you might say, I want to go serve orphans. Well, then you should be a missionary. You know what I mean? Instead of if that's what you're passionate about serving. So I think that question can change a lot. But for me, man, it was my story. It's what I'm passionate about. It's also who could work with me. So I don't know if I have a great answer to that, because I think it's so personal. I think that answering that question, number one, who are you, is really important to answering the second question, who do I serve?
And so for you, is that why you ended up starting a nonprofit?
Yeah, well, we started a nonprofit before we were in real estate. I was 22, man, when I started that. I was young, and I wanted to help young guys like me begin to kind of build a spiritual foundation for the rest of their lives. It had such a huge impact in my life, and my faith has been such an important part of my journey that I knew there were young guys like me, man, who were just kind of struggling with this. They didn't have good mentors to kind of help shine light on some of these issues. And so that's why we started the nonprofit early on.
Are you struggling to understand how to underwrite multifamily properties? Hi, I'm John Stober, and I completely understand your problem. I thought underwriting would come naturally to me due to my background in finance and accounting, but I quickly found out that there aren't a lot of resources that cover this subject. I had no idea whether what I was doing was right, wrong, or just original. I don't want you to have to pick up little nuggets here and there like I did. So I wrote an ebook called How to Analyze Big Apartment Buildings and Make Them Feel Small that puts together all the pieces of the puzzle. We're also giving away a deal analyzer with the ebook, and they're both completely free. Don't wait as long as I did to start chasing financial freedom. Go to bit.ly/underwriting ebook and get your free copy today.
The reason I ask that is because, what you said actually about if you want to go serve orphans, go be a missionary. For the person who wants to create a lot of wealth, though, so maybe they can go help orphans or just impoverished people, their investor avatar is probably very different from the person they're trying to serve. But doesn't creating wealth allow them to, like you said, have more influence, so that way they can ultimately help more people?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, that's a really great question, because I think you could do both. If you're so passionate but you want to go serve orphans, you could just go serve orphans at an orphanage. But you could also create a business that creates capital, that could fund orphanages, right? You know what I mean? And so instead of being one person, you're just donating your time. Now you have a business that can fund not just orphans, but orphanages, like an orphanage, multiple of those. So yeah, man, I mean, and then, you think about your message and then the type of investors you're working with. Hey, the reason I'm building this real estate company is because we donate half of our profits to support adoptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes really powerful, because now you start finding people who are saying, oh, wow, this guy's not just only building a business, but has a mission behind it. And you start really finding your community that way. So
that kind of plays great into my next question. So I wanted to ask, how important is it to share values with your investors? And have you turned away any investors that didn't really match your values and your company's values?
Dude, this is such a good question. It is not only important, if you don't do it, you are, how do I want to say this? Especially in a saturated market, you're going to get crushed. Because here's the thing. When you come into a industry like real estate, your product is not different. People have been investing in buying in real estate for ever. I mean, for decades. And especially in the world of multifamily. You guys, dude, we are so far behind in the sense of our track record and our experience and assets under management. I mean, when it comes to if it's between you and me and let's say Grant Cardone and somebody we were talking about on paper, why would anybody invest with us? You know what I'm saying? Literally, why? But that's not how people make decisions. They don't make decisions based on paper. They make decisions based on emotion. And then they justify those decisions with logic. So if you don't share your values, one, I don't think you're going to make it. And two, you're missing out. I mean, you're only hurting yourself by not being upfront. So I talk about my faith a lot. Why? Because one, it's me, it's who I authentically am. But two, what I've learned along the way, again, I start out, it's just starting to make more and more sense to me, because I'm starting to find more and more my community. The more I talk about my faith, the more, yes, I turn people away, but man, the more people I attract. And the more people I attract who are committed to work with me. You know what I'm saying? It's Ellis is my guy. And that loyalty really comes from the emotional connection that we share together. Not, this kind of transactional, oh, Ellis has a good product type relationship. So I think sharing your values, man, in this age, and honestly, the more polarizing, the better.
Yeah, that was actually going to ask. That was my next question. Should you try to be polarizing?
Dude, great example. Donald Trump. Mic drop.
All right, so what about Trump for maybe an alien who?
People, there's no in between. People, this is so good. You know how much people hate Donald Trump? Like you've seen the language. You
So much.
People hate Donald Trump. But do you also realize people love, like passionately love Donald Trump? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Why? Because he's so polarizing. Because, like, we're so passionate about Donald Trump, and it can be good or bad, and that's to his favor, right? One, because people that hate him are still talking to him, so there's still good press on him. People who love him, the dude can honestly say whatever he wants, and people will still vote for him because, like, he has their loyalty. And so, again, I'm not saying be Donald Trump. I'm not going to get into what I think about Donald Trump. I would say this. He's polarizing to me. I don't really like the man. I mean, I can't quite fathom how people really could see eye to eye. But it's not my point. My point is that he has created a brand that you either love or you hate. And it's honestly good for him because the people that, he's repelling those who don't want to work with him, but those who do, man, they are so in. They're so all in. You know what I mean? All the media, all the things that Donald Trump has said negatively and all the things that he's blamed with, dude, they're still in it to win it with Donald Trump.
So follow-up question then, why is it better for someone to hate you than to not know who you are? If they're just going to go online and like talk a whole bunch of shit about you.
I mean, you got to be careful. You really want people to hate you. Like, I don't think I'm building a brand where people are going to be like, Ellis Hammond is the worst. You know what I mean? Like, listen, I think we got a pretty good mission. I think most people would be like, I just don't. The things that he's passionate about or his mission, I'm not really in with that. So I don't know if I would go that far, but again, to Donald Trump's point, back to Donald Trump, they're still talking about him, still giving him press, and you hear a lot more about Trump than you do Biden, negative or positive, just his in the media more. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but at the same time, man, like, if people don't know you, they can't work with you. So I don't know if you should create a brand where people hate you. That's definitely not the goal. But I think the goal is for sure to be polarizing enough where there will be some say, I don't want to work with that guy, because that only makes those who want to work. That means there are those who are going to be as equally, if not more, passionate about working with you. That's the key.
I feel like you've developed a great brand when you have the people who you're repelling. If they say anything, your people you're attracting, like, they will come support you.
Yeah.
And that's the best. Like, that's how like you've got these people who are on your side of the fence, and like you don't even have to say anything anymore.
Yeah.
And potentially look unprofessional.
Yeah. Well, I would say this too, like, those who don't, I mean, I talk to a lot of people all the time, in the world of industry, they're not Christian, they're not, but here's the thing, like, there's a mad respect for me and our business. And like, maybe that's a better thing. And hey, like, they don't really want to work with me or like we're on the same page, but they know who I am. They know what I'm about. They know the message I'm thinking. And they would here's the thing is, if they ever ran into anybody else that would say, hey, I mean, I'm looking for someone who's Christian and multifamily, they'd be like, oh, go to Ellis. Right. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's like, boom, he's that guy. So they may not want to work with me, but they know who I am. They know what I'm about. And it's real clear if they come across anybody who's running in that lane, they know exactly. And I get that a lot. Hey, I want to make this introduction. I know you guys are both spiritual or Christian or whatever they end up calling it. So it works.
So Ellis, love the mission, man. And I just want to kind of give a chance to kind of ask you, what's next for you and your mission going forward? What do you see happening in the future for you guys?
Yeah, dude. So we're I'm about to launch this book on September 21st, The Mission of Multifamily. And I'm really on a mission, man, to use the vehicle of multifamily real estate to transform cities, neighborhoods, and individual lives. And we do that a couple of ways. Again, we're going to be buying multiple, hopefully hundreds, if not thousands of units over the next several years. Really believe in what we can do with multifamily, and really caring for those cities, those neighborhoods, those residents, but also from our investor standpoint, dude, like I want to help entrepreneurs, business owners, business leaders find freedom from their finances so that they can go and they have the freedom to create, to take risk, to be bold, to be innovative. Like I think that's the real answer to a lot of our issues in our country right now. And so I think it's going to be on the backs of entrepreneurs and business leaders to really do that. And so I think we have a dual part mission in that. So to be really specific, we're in the works of, when we have our own acquisition team, we're in the works of putting together our first fund to put together to really go and invest in assets where we can do both, find strong yield and strong spiritual impact.
Awesome.
Love it.
Could you so you mentioned, I 100% agree with you. Like being a successful entrepreneur does like allow you to take more risks, just I think have overall more fulfillment in your life. Could you talk about like how it's changed yours, over the past few years?
Yeah. I just never would have thought, man, when I was still working in a nonprofit, the biggest thing that kept me from really working or really making the transition earlier is because I thought to leave the nonprofit space, I would be leaving my greatest impact. And just because I just thought marketplace or business maybe was lesser than working kind of on the mission field or on the front lines is what you might call it. And dude, I just have seen like the world of entrepreneurship and creating a business, and there's so much there, man. Like you get to meet people at like a different, like at a just a real raw level. Like everyone's trying to figure out how to make it in this world. Everyone's trying to figure out how to put food on their table. You know what I mean? Like, and when you create a business, you get to enter into that, right? Like you get access to people's lives that even the pastors and the missionaries never get access to. And I just think like, that's been really special, man, to have that. And, just freedom over our time and what we do and how we spend our time, has been really significant. So I've loved, and not only that, man, we get to speak, like I get to speak more now as an entrepreneur in the stages and the access to networks, just because again, I have I'm credible. There's a platform. I'm building something that people are interested in, and from all walks of life. And so that's been really unique and really special.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever think you would, like, could you have imagined when you started that you would be here now, like where you are?
Yeah, at this point, it's just because we have so much more to go, man. Like I'm glad I was expecting to make it this far. It's the future goals that scare me. You know what I'm saying? Like I think this is, we've come a long ways really fast. So maybe the timeline is like we're really grateful for, but just like scratching the surface in my mind, man. So we got a long. Ask me that in like 5 years, that.
Hey, but that's amazing. If your goals are that big that they scare you, like, dude, you're going after some big stuff.
Yeah,
that's what they say. If your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
All right, man. We're getting up on time, so I wanted to get to our section of the show that we call the Fast Five, and they're the same 5 questions we ask every guest that comes on the show.
I'm ready.
All right. So question number 1 is, if you were in your early 20s and you had to start all over again, how would you do that?
Yeah. I would figure out what you're passionate about, what you like, what entertains you. Is there money in it? Is there a way to make money in it? If there's not, then move on fast. But find out what it is. Go find people who like, find a community to really serve, right? Like, don't worry about the product yet. Don't worry about what you're going to go sell. Like, go figure out who you are, what you love. Is there a community around this, right? Is there a community around these things that you really like? what is the problem that they have? What are they struggling with? And then go create something that can really serve them. And really simply, man, like start building that network, like start building that list of people. Create something small and just like become the man or the woman in that thing. Like, for example, like I'm going to be Mr. Multifamily. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it is because I'm going to become the expert of my craft that like, the guy who is doing that right now is like Grant Cardone. Like he's just Mr. Multifamily, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what you don't need to be at that scale, but if you could find something even niche and become the go-to person in that, like that's so significant, and anybody can do it no matter how old you are. And so like finding something, a niche, are there people in it? If so, figure out what the need is, go create a small product, start building that network and that email list, and just continue to figure out more ways to serve. And I'm telling you, where there's value, money flows.
Love that. Next question. How do you see young professionals adding the most value to experienced operators in this space?
I think a podcast. I think if you can build a strong platform, where you build an audience. I think what's really cool about millennials and young folks is like we're better at social media. Like we get it. Like we're entertaining. We're not boring. If you can build a strong platform, you can. That's massive, and that can really help other older folks. It's amazing, man, how many people that are really experienced and do really well in real estate, but there's a ceiling to their growth because they just don't have any online presence, and they want to work with me. And I'm like, really? You want to work with me? Why? Because I got a big online platform that they honestly wouldn't probably take them that long to build, but they just don't know how. So in their mind, it's like impossible. So it's like, well, I'd rather just give half my company to Ellis because he's already got it. So I think that's a huge way.
You're building on an asset.
Yeah.
It's so true. So what's the biggest mistake you've made in your career, and how have you since adjusted your business because of that?
I would say two things. One is trying to do it all on my own early on. So I spun my wheels for way too long trying to do everything. So now I have 3 partners in my business. And then the other mistake was, again, not building that list right away. So I created a lot of content and asked for nothing. And I think, if you have a platform and you're creating content, you should be exchanging that content for at least somebody's email.
Like that. So this goes right into question number 4. What's been your favorite way to incorporate technology and social media into your business?
Yeah. Which I don't know. How niche? ClickFunnels. I use funnels a lot, like promoting my book. We have a funnel there. Just like the automation, like thinking about customer journey and understanding when someone comes and downloads something, that's not the end goal. So like we got to add email sequence in there. We got to add LinkedIn sequence in there. Like we got to, okay, cool. They downloaded that, but that's just the beginning. Now they're part of your thing. Now they're part of the journey. And so using email automation systems, using funnels to be able to do stuff like that, using things like anything that makes my life easier. So using Calendly, for example, instead of having to go back and forth with folks, hey, I got a link. You can go there. You can pick a time, and in 2 minutes, we got a call scheduled. And then that Calendly sends all my follow-up emails. It sends a text reminder so that come Wednesday at 12 o'clock, I know that person's going to show up.
You are speaking Fritz's language. So
all about the apps.
Yeah. So the last question is, what book has been most influential to you along your journey?
In real estate?
Just in life.
Man, there's so many. I'll give you one that probably most people don't talk about. It's called Mindset and the Psychology of Success. And the book was really life-changing, helping me understand the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And we really want to be on the growth side where, just like for a great example is talking about the older folks, like they don't think they can do social media. It's really not that hard, right? It's just like they haven't done it for so long. So in their mind, it's a kind of a fixed mentality where, if you just said, instead of saying, well, I can't do that, turning the question in your mind and saying, well, how do I figure it out? Or who do I need to partner with? Or no, I don't know it right now, but I bet if I worked on this 30 minutes a day, a year from now, I'd be an expert at it. You know what I'm saying? So that growth mentality has been really huge for me.
That's called mindset or psychology of success?
It's called mindset, and the subline is psychology of success.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, Ellis, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Millennials and Multifamily podcast. I know you named off like 10 different ways someone could get in touch with you, but
I only got one.
Yeah, could you just say the best ways for someone to reach out?
I only got one, man. One call to action, make it really clear. missionofmultifamily.com. I want to offer everyone in your audience a free copy of my book that is coming out real soon. Definitely should be out by the time this launches, September 21st. So missionofmultifamily.com. Definitely get a free copy. You'll get an email from me, of course, as we've already talked about, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Let me know how you're enjoying it, and would love to interact that way. And then you can find me on LinkedIn as well.
And that is how you do a call to action. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining today. This has been a blast.
Yeah, me too, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Millennials in Multifamily podcast, brought to you by Kronos Investment Partners. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and a written review at iTunes so that we can connect with more people. Finally, head on over to kronosinvestmentpartners.com and sign up for our newsletter so you can stay updated on everything we're doing. If you're interested in partnering with us as we find new opportunities, you can also schedule a phone call with us under the Contact Us tab at kronosinvestmentpartners.com.